We are now joined by Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. He's the author of The Antidote, Healing America from the Poison of Hatred, Blame, and Victimhood. His website is rebuildingtheman.com. His YouTube channel is The Fallen State. Well, Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, it's great to be joined by you. I consider you the Yoda of racial discussions because these are obviously very, emotional discussions, and somehow you always manage to keep a cool and calm head. So here we are with Jesse Lee Peterson, the Yoda of racial discussions. And I wanted to have you on today, obviously, to talk about the hate crime video that went out on Facebook, all of the aftermath, all of the build up to that. But first, Jesse, let's just talk about this. Let's get this out here. Obviously, everyone's seen the video of now. What was your first reaction to this? How did it kind of touch your heart? What were you thinking as you witnessed this and thought about what might come afterwards?
I wasn't surprised at all. For the last 26 years, I've been trying to warn white Americans that the race war is already happening, except it's a one-sided war where black people are attacking white Americans around the country. You have to realize that not all, but most black people hate white folks. And they're angry at them. They blame white folks for their failure in life. The anger starts in the home, of course, due to the fact that most of them are born out of wedlock. So they're mad at their mothers and grandmothers who passed their anger down to their children. And instead of showing them how to overcome that anger by forgiving their parents, they are being told that it's the white man, it's racism, and white folks are trying to hold you back. So for generations and generations, you've seen black Americans taking their anger out on white folks. The knockout games, robbing and stealing from white folks. I remember there was a last summer sometime when black teenagers were going into white businesses in the daylight and just robbing them. And you have rape, and you haven't heard the media, anyone say anything about it. And I've been writing about this, talking about this, and telling white folks if they don't start standing up and speaking up, each generation of blacks will only get worse. And so this hate, evil act that you saw in Chicago by the four black thugs is just an example of how bad it has really gotten, and it's going to get worse if we don't deal with the anger of black Americans.
And I hate having to have discussions like this on the principle of skin color or race, but we have to because these issues are apparently still ahead of us. But where do you think the youth or where do you think people in black culture are getting these messages that the white man is to blame or hate the white man? Where are these messages coming from? Where are they getting these foundational beliefs?
Well, over the last 50 to 60 years, they've gotten it from Jesse Jackson, Louis Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, the NAACP, Congressional Black Caucus, and most of the black preachers who are not called by God but by their mama. They have been saying to black Americans, racism is an issue. White people hate you. They're trying to hold you back simply because you're black. And this is slavery. This is part of slavery, or aftermath of slavery. And then you bring Barack Obama in the White House for the last 8 years, and that's all he's been talking about. He has created an environment where blacks are more convinced today that white people hate them than any other time in history. Barack Obama support this radical, evil, hateful, agitative organization like Black Lives Matter, who are worse than the KKK. And as a matter of fact, Obama invited the heads of that organization to the White House several times, at least a couple of times for sure. And so he sent out a message that black people are hated by white folks. And you have these young black people in these universities and in the ghettos who are falling for this lie, and they are taking it out. We have seen them kill white cops around the country. And so it's the black so-called leadership who are keeping this lie going forth. We all know by now that there's no such thing as racism. Racism is a lie. It's an illusion that's been made up by the race hustlers. Black Americans are suffering due to the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character. It has nothing to do with white folks at all, but it's the leadership that keep this thing going, along with the liberal media.
Yeah, and I don't think Barack Obama has invited the victim of the hate crime to the White House yet, at least as far as I know. As you mentioned, he has invited folks from the Black Lives Matter movement. But, it's amazing to me how the media has been able to dominate this paradigm because for me personally, growing up in school as a kid, high school, throughout my whole life, me personally, I've never really had a problem with black people. They have never been racist towards me. I've never been racist towards them. People here at the office and everyday walks of life, black people and white people, the normal people, just seem to get along. Like you said, this racism doesn't seem to exist on the level that they put it on. But how is it that the media, and I guess with Barack Obama too, how is it that they're able to just beat that reality out of us that we experience in day to day, and then put this fake reality into our mindset?
Well, when you're angry, you're cut off from the reality, real reality. When you're an angry person, it's hard to believe the truth and easy to believe the lie. And if you notice, over the last 50 years or so, the media, along with the race hustling so called leadership, they have kept Black Americans angry. They won't allow them to have a moment to examine themselves, to understand that their anger starts in the home first. It has nothing to do with white folks. They're constantly finding things that look like racism. For example, whenever there is a white on black situation, they're all over it. They tell you it's a white man who attacked black people. This is a hate crime. The attorney general, along with the president, come out of the woodwork. They hold press conferences. So they're constantly feeding that anger that's within the hearts and minds of black people so that they can use them. You cannot control a moral people, you have to demoralize them in order to control them. So they keep most, not all, but most Black Americans in a state of anger and demoralization in order to control them, generation after generation. They will not allow you to resolve the issues in the public school system. They won't let you educate your kids at home. They try everything they can do to stop that. They won't let you speak the truth in the churches nowadays because they know if Black Americans ever woke up and took control of their own lives, then the hustlers would go out of business.
Such a great points there, psychologically and societally considering it as well. And
Yeah.
I think that part of what you're talking about here, at least for me, is what's really going on when they try to demonize white people or try to foment these race wars. They're really targeting black people is what they're
Yes.
doing. They're really trying to target the black people in order to, as you said, try to leverage whatever hate or whatever anger that they have in their hearts, whether it be a family issue, an issue at school, or whatever it is. They try to take that and then they try to levy that against the white man or against
That's
whoever it
right.
is that they aim it at. The police is another example here. But to me, it feels like these people, they don't even understand that they're still the black people are actually the victim of this brainwashing because,
That's
like you
right.
said, they're using the anger, they're using the false narratives.
That's right. Look at Chicago, black on black crime out, I mean, through the roof. And over this past year, something like 762 homicides, I believe, somewhere in there. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Obama has been in the White House for 8 years. He has done nothing about that. And it's right in his backyard,
Right.
but nothing about it. And whenever he does mention it, it's all about racism. This is racism. This is racism. Obama could have gone in there, cleaned up this mess or that mess, and then insisted that black men and women get married or at least raise their children, be responsible, cut out the government programs, and rebuild that area. But he did nothing, and he doesn't want to do anything because he needs the chaos, he needs the hatred between the races in order to redistribute wealth, power, and wealth in order to gain control for himself. Black leadership, liberal media, and white liberal Democrats can care less about black people. Black folks are just a ways to a means. They are just a vote. They are just there to be used for power and wealth. And this situation in Chicago, even the black police police commissioner there in Chicago did not want to call it a hate crime. He tried to get around calling it a hate crime. I guarantee you, had it been four white boys, four white people doing that to a black person. I'm sorry, four white people doing that to a black person. The police commissioner would have called it a hate crime right off the bat. but he did not want to do it this time around. He was forced to do it.
Yeah, and the liberal media also did not want to
Yes,
call it a hate crime. They were trying to keep
that's
their
right.
hands off of that narrative as long as they possibly could. Of course, anybody who thinks logically just had to watch the video, see it for themselves. They knew exactly what happened.
Right
Now,
away.
go ahead.
Right away, they
Oh,
knew. They
yes,
could see.
exactly.
They're
Exactly.
saying F Donald Trump, F white people. Do you like black people? Do you love black people? It was all about color. It was all about hatred of white Americans. It was a hate crime.
And it's just this whole narrative is amazing to me, especially coming out of the mouth of Barack Obama. Let's keep in mind, Barack Obama was elected as the first president with any African heritage. He's half black, half white. You know, people want to
Yeah,
battle semantics on that, but they use that to get him elected. There are tons of people who voted for Barack Obama sheerly upon the reason that he didn't have white skin. And yet
that's
now
right.
this same guy is sitting here virtue signaling over racism when it's his race that you could claim got him elected.
That's right. And they voted for him. 98% of black Americans back in 2008 voted for Barack Obama simply because he was black and a liberal Democrat, of course, but because he was black. They repeated it the second time around. And had white people voted for someone simply because they're white, especially that number, high number, they would have been called racist. But you know, they said, well, black people can't be racist. That's a lie. If racism exists, anyone can be it, whomever decide that they want to hate their fellow man. But Barack Obama has let the black community down, even though they voted for him. There are more unemployed black Americans today under Barack Obama than under President Bush or Bill Clinton. The crime and out of wedlock birth, abortion through the roof in the black community under Barack Obama. He has done nothing to enhance the black community. And believe me, many of them are disappointed in him. And that's include the black preachers who are supposed to be men of God. They too voted for Barack Obama, knowing that he is a liar, a deceiver, knowing that he support everything that goes against Christianity. It was because of his color only.
And it's amazing because the data actually concludes that many of the same people that voted for Obama were the same people that voted for Trump. So it's amazing how you're not racist when you vote for Obama, but then the same person, if you vote for Trump, you're a racist. Now,
That's right.
earlier, and this is something that you have really focused your work on with your website, Rebuilding the Man, and your book that you wrote. And Don Lemon, I'm sure that you heard this. Don Lemon said that he didn't believe this was an act of hate. He thought that this was lack of home training. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on Don Lemon saying that this is a lack of home training?
My first thought is that he's a liar. He knows, he understands, he can see that this was based on hatred of white America. He said absolutely see that. But yes, it's a lack of love and home training from their parents. Their parents have failed them. Their parents are failures. And so yes, they let them down in the beginning, but this act in Chicago had everything to do with hating the white man. And Don Lemon is a liar.
Well, and I will not disagree with you on Don Lemon, but I will agree with you. I think there might be, some truth in what he said about the
Yes.
home life. Do these kids have a father to go home to that cares for them and raises them and disciplines them? Do they have a mother that cares about them and raises them? It turns out that the two girls actually had their own apartment, so it does not appear that they were going home to a mother and father every
Yeah.
night. I don't know their exact situation at home. We can only go off what we know, but I will say this. I think that it's obvious if they had an influential mother or father that was a good role model in their life, that this probably would have happened. But I'd pose this question, and I just want to hear your reaction. I think that if these young people had God in their life or had Jesus in their life, I don't think this would have happened.
If those young people had good parents, it would not be happening. If they had God in their lives, it would not be happening. If they had love in their hearts, it would not be happening. I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama. I grew up under the Jim Crow laws. We had to work the cotton fields and all kinds of things. But because we had good parents, good grandparents, they did not teach us to hate. They said that there were good and bad in all cultures of people and that we should treat people the way that we would like to be treated. They did not teach us to hate. And as a result, we didn't have this kind of mess happening in the black community that you see happening today. This is why I had hoped that Barack Obama would focus on the family in the black community. He's there for his wife and his children, and it's working in that way. Why not promote that for other black folks in this country? It's good for his family. It should be good for all families.
And it's amazing because one of the reasons why I think what you say resonates so much with so many people and just has so much truth and gravity to it is the same thing that I feel about myself, where I was in the matrix for so long, I was brainwashed for so long that
Yeah,
I've experienced that walk of life. So it's easier
yeah,
for me to be on the outside looking in to try to help explain people. You, on the other hand, have kind of experienced growing up with some of that anger, experienced growing up maybe not getting along with your father, and now here you are experiencing that, saying, no, wait a second, there's a better way to do this, and you're trying to share that with the youth.
that's right. And I was only able to see and understand and overcome when I forgave my father. I had this yearning for my dad deep down in my soul. And so when I finally got with my father, we worked out the situation and I became one with him and he became one with me. And my soul was fulfilled. That anger and all of those things disappeared. And I realized that it was never about my color. It was never a physical battle, but a spiritual battle. And because whenever anyone, man or woman, is disconnected from their father, it leaves an emptiness inside of you. And until you forgive your father, you would never be fulfilled. You must forgive your father and your mother, but especially your father. And when I forgave him, I realized that it was never about black and white. It was about a disconnection from my earthly father. And we hooked up, and my father and I became one, and I have nothing but peace in my life. I see a spiritual battle happening between people. It's a warfare between good and evil, right versus wrong. It's about the character of the person. Never mind if you're male or female, it's about the character and not the color. Dr. Martin Luther King talked about the same thing. He said it was about the character and not the color, and he wanted Black Americans to be judged based on character. But when he was assassinated, the liars like Jesse Jackson and others took over the movement and they focused on the color rather than the character. And now, as I said earlier, most blacks lack character.
And and the real thing about that with the father, it's a role model figure. It's somebody, and the father's the natural one. It's somebody that you look at and you say, okay, this is how a man is supposed to carry himself. This is how you're
Yeah.
honorable. This is how you act with integrity. And my guess would be, again, I don't know, but if you asked these young people who were their role models, they would probably point to people like the Kardashians or Jay-Z, not their
Yeah.
father, or somebody like you, who
Yeah.
I think would be a good role model. Now, we were both talking about a segment that was on Bill O'Reilly. Carl Dix and Cornel West were on Bill O'Reilly. They were saying they want mass protest in the streets to stop Trump's fascism and racism. They even said, and I quote, they want to see whipping, or they say that Trump is whipping up a lynch mob atmosphere. I quote. What is your response to that?
When I saw that, it was disgusting. And I'm thinking, you have a communist sitting here blaming Donald Trump for what's happening in the black community. He blamed them for black problems, women problems, homosexual problems, all kinds of things. Both of those men, I realized, had no shame. They have no sense of pride about themselves. They are wicked to the core. They are liars. And I'm glad that Bill O'Reilly exposed them in a good way, but I wish he had exposed them even more so. Cornel West should be ashamed of himself. I don't know how he lived with himself promoting that type of hatred and lies. Donald Trump has nothing to do with the situation in the black community today. If anything, I believe he's gonna make things better for black people more so than any other so-called black leader have done in the last 60 years or so. It was a disgrace. They have no shame.
Yeah, and let's at least give Donald Trump a chance. But I'd have to agree. I was shocked at
Yeah.
the approach that Carl Dix and Cornel West took to that segment, especially considering this was just 24 hours after the surfacing of the video of the hate crime and the torture. We're going to end this interview with Reverend Peterson on a good note. We haven't spoken since the election of Donald Trump. You just mentioned how you think that Trump is going to help build the inner city communities, the black communities, mend race relations. You were telling me how you were dancing on November 8th when Trump wins. What do you think? You think Trump can actually turn this around?
I went to bed late on November 8th, I tried to stay up and watch to see the result, but I couldn't. I woke up early on the 9th of November and turned the news on. Donald Trump is the winner. Right away, I went to cloud nine. I am on cloud nine, dancing on the ceiling. And when I see these liberals who are upset, they need dogs to comfort them and they are crying. I'm thinking, now you know what we have been feeling for the last 8 years and even beyond that. It's about time that these godless liberals feel the pain that the good folks of this country have been feeling for a long time. I believe that we now have hope for this country. Donald Trump will make America great again. He will put this big, beautiful wall around the borders. He will cut back on these restrictions that hold back small businesses. He will bring the economy back. And I believe he's going to end up uniting the races like no one else has done in a long time. It was so nice coming into Christmas and a brand new year, knowing that Donald Trump and not Hillary Clinton or any other Democrat is the president of this great nation. We finally have hope for the country again. I am dancing on the ceiling. I'm having a ball.
And up here on Trump Cloud 9, it doesn't matter what color your skin is. All that matters is that you're a proud American. Thank you so much, Reverend Peterson, for joining us again.
Thank you, my friend. And again, Happy New Year to you.
You too.
Talk show host is Alex Jones. He's a conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Jones is the wildly popular conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones.
Deeply, I think, racist.
I just got called racist by MSNBC.
I don't want that man to have a gun.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
The Alex Jones Show. Watch the free stream live at Infowars.com/show.